Hey everyone, Gill Gross here, post-match, Andrey Rublev versus Daniil Medvedev, and we're doing two, Novak Djokovic versus Stefanos Tsitsipas, ATP Finals 2022, day 2 of the round-robin stage. If you're not here for spoilers, click off the video in 3, 2, 1. In the first match of the day, Andrey Rublev, for a second straight time, defeats Daniil Medvedev, third straight upset result at this year's year-end championships. And then in the nightcap, finally a favorite wins. Novak Djokovic over Stefanos Tsitsipas, 6-4, 7-6. Rublev's win, by the way, was a comeback victory after losing, I think it was 6 set points in the first, losing the first set, wins the second 6-3, wins the third in a tremendous tiebreak. Let's start with that one. And there's a lot of interesting elements to what we saw from Andrey Rublev. And let me start off by saying, I know I've said in the past that I root for my predictions to be correct just because I'd rather be right than wrong, obviously. This is one of those cases where I'm super happy to be wrong because for our entertainment, for our interest, Andrey Rublev being competitive against a guy like Daniil Medvedev and making this head-to-head an interesting one in terms of who is going to win and who has the edge is so great for men's tennis. And Andrey works so hard and wants it so bad. It's hard not to be happy for him when he pulls off such a big victory like this. I think it's the second biggest win of his career, probably after his win over Nadal at Monte Carlo. But that's up for debate. You could say that it's the biggest win of his career. And certainly, I think a more satisfying win over Medvedev compared to his previous win in Cincinnati when the camera incident kind of cast a shadow over the result of that match. And to be completely honest with you, watching the match, I did think the camera incident had a lot to do with why Medvedev kind of went down a dark path in that particular meeting. But Rublev does it without any such interference this time. And it was a really impressive victory. I think one of the where I want to start is a stat that Rublev beat Medvedev in that almost nobody ever beats Medvedev in, which is the battle of returns in play. Conventional wisdom suggests who has a better first serve, Medvedev or Rublev? Medvedev. Who has a better first serve return, Medvedev or Rublev? Medvedev. So surely Rublev isn't going to win the returns in play battle on the first serve, but he did that. Rublev put 48%, or I'll put it this way, 51% of Rublev's first serves were unreturned. 48% of Medvedev's first serves were unreturned. And Rublev only hit 9 aces. Medvedev hit 24. So what does that tell you? That tells you that Rublev was racking up the service winners. It tells you that Medvedev got his racket on plenty of Rublev's first serves, but he wasn't putting it back in play. First of all, that's very un-Medvedev-like. Usually Medvedev, when he gets a racket on it, it comes back. And that's what he's so good at. But the second thing I think it tells you is, first of all, Rublev, his slice serve on the deuce side is where I thought he really dominated. Slice serve down the tee, kept sliding into Medvedev's body, and he just couldn't get a clean hit on it. And on the also on the deuce side, the wide serve, it was pulling Medvedev out wide, and putting him in a really tough position. And I thought there were a lot of missed returns there. But regardless, this was a really, really awesome serve return performance by Rublev, and he outdid Medvedev in that category. Begs the question, if Daniil had this much trouble with this Andrey Rublev serve, how will Tsitsipas fare? And that's a really interesting question coming into that match. I've also always observed that Rublev gets a real boost from indoors when it comes to his first serve. And, we know that Andrey has kind of had such a high win rate on the indoor hard courts. I just feel like the first serve and how much better it gets is a big reason why. And it was on full display here. So Rublev wins the returns and play battle against Medvedev, which is like really, really hard to do. But the patience was the second thing that really stood out. Rublev was willing to go the distance with Medvedev. He was willing to match him for shot tolerance, and he was willing to suffer. Just look at the third set tiebreak. Rublev won 3 rallies over 30 shots, including match point. I think he realized something clicked in Andrey's mind that Medvedev has trouble hurting him. And the majority of Medvedev's success is because of Rublev misses in this matchup traditionally. And Rublev he refused to let that happen again. He waited for his moment. He was selective about when he injected pace in the rallies. He was not getting himself out of position by running around every single backhand that he could have ran around. He instead accepted backhands, stayed in position, took pace off the ball when there wasn't an opening offensively. And he just made sure to actually ask the questions of Medvedev, hey, can you actually hurt me? Or are you just going to absorb until all of my aggression, eventually results in an error? Because this time it's not happening. I'm going to be patient and consistent. And that's what Rublev did, and it made a huge difference. When it came to Rublev's backhand, I thought there was a really, really awesome strategy adjustment on the backhand side in terms of his directionals. Mostly down the line. Most of Rublev's backhands went down the line. There were a couple benefits to that. The first thing is, I think the major thing is that Medvedev's backhand it's so difficult to get anything to attack off of Medvedev's backhand. And I've discussed that at length actually recently. His trading is just so good, and his depth is so good. And on this low bouncing fast court, the flatness of it is also a big help. You get to Medvedev's backhand and you just don't get any opportunity to attack. But if you go to his forehand, there's more spin. There's generally a little more air under it. The depth isn't as good. Honestly, the stability of it isn't good. So when you go there hard, when you go there with pace and depth, it's not as good a shock absorber as the backhand. There are all these benefits to going to Medvedev's forehand. But so Rublev on his backhand side was like, well, look, I'm not going to hit cross court, and I'm not going to get into that backhand rally with Daniil, because Daniil's going to smoke Rublev in that category. I'm going to change direction whenever I can. And that's hard to do, especially when the court's fast. It's a lot easier on clay, but on a court this fast, it takes impeccable timing to go down the line with the backhand majority of the time, which I believe the Infosys stats had it at 52% of Andrey Rublev's backhands were down the line. It's really hard to do that. One other time I've seen Rublev do that was against Nadal at Monte Carlo when he beat him last year, where he kind of was able to get it away from Nadal's forehand by just going down the line all the time with the backhand. And I talked about the same thing, how good Rublev's timing is on the backhand down the line, because he's able to change that pattern and change direction, usually without missing. Again, it's hard to do. He did an amazing job of it. The last factor was Medvedev taking a pass at attacking Rublev's second serve. A lot of the time when we see Rublev, and this is an area where even though Medvedev opened up 4-0 in the head-to-head over Rublev, and Rublev said, even as a child, I could never beat Medvedev. Despite all these things being true, there's one thing that Rublev does, or players who beat Rublev do, that Medvedev actually doesn't: attack the Rublev second serve. Kyrgios does that. He's played Rublev very well. Fritz does that. He's played Rublev very well. Sinner does that. He plays Rublev very well. Medvedev does not do that. It's not in his DNA to take a big cut at the second serve return. But against Andrey Rublev, you should. You should, because it's one of the better looks you are likely going to get. And I don't think Medvedev made that adjustment. So I think next time they play, if Medvedev feels like, okay, I need to do something better, I think that's an area that he can look at, because he just took a pass. And if you look at the second serve stats, Rublev won 60% of his second serve points, which is awesome. You're going to usually win matches that way. Medvedev won 44% of his second serve points. Some of that was down to the 8 double faults, the 8 points that Medvedev didn't even give himself a chance to win the second serve point. But Rublev also hit a lot of good offensive returns off of Medvedev's second serve, which was shaky in this match. And in general, it can be shaky. It can be. And it was. So all of these things combine to give Rublev the victory, despite a pretty good Medvedev performance on first serve, especially in that third set. And lastly, a shout out to Rublev's mental toughness, because he could have gone away after the first set. The first set was a heartbreaker and a crusher, and a lot of players with lesser mental strength could have wilted and sulked. But look, Rublev, he really is a fiery. Say what you will about sometimes him lacking some composure or getting a little bit maybe too emotional. I don't know if I still haven't really figured out how much that affects his tennis negatively, or if it does at all. But in this case, his hardy, dogged determination was on full display, and it enabled him to win this match. Enormous win for Rublev. Djokovic beating Tsitsipas, a little bit easier than it was in Paris, when Novak needed a third set tiebreak to get through Stefanos, and it was a kind of a pulsating, razor-thin margin affair. This one, a little bit more decisive, although Tsitsipas played markedly better in the second set. Djokovic got the break of serve first game of the match. That was the only break of serve in the match. So one thing I'll just throw out in general, these Turin conditions, they are, and this is kind of what I remember from last year, if you serve well and don't make mistakes, you're pretty much going to hold. It's just, that's the nature of the conditions. You make first serves, you hit your spots, you hold. It's that simple. This is fast court tennis. So they certainly did that. The match went very, very quickly. It was easy holds galore. But ultimately, I think these conditions compared to Paris should help and did help Novak. And a lot of that was just because of how Djokovic on serve was able to just, and he did this in Paris as well, but the precision offense, the precision serving, the +1, attacking Tsitsipas's backhand, being able to come forward with really good efficiency. I mean, all of that, and making Tsitsipas hit more backhands. All of that is going to be accentuated on this quick court. On the slower court, more forehands for Tsitsipas and better returning for Tsitsipas. And I think that gives him a better chance in this head-to-head. I thought the Tsitsipas backhand is still what needs to change. And it's still what needs to change if he is going to play Djokovic better and ultimately beat him. And right now, the head-to-head, it's 10-2 Djokovic. Tsitsipas was off to a 2-1 lead. He won 2 out of the first 3 times they played. So now Djokovic is on a big win streak here against Stefanos, 8 matches in a row. It's still the backhand, but it was better in the second set. When Tsitsipas trades his backhand, in the first set, he was going like 80% cross court. That's too much. At that point, you're predictable. You're not keeping Novak honest. If you are going to be predictable, then you better be good. The backhands better be deep, and they better be angled. And you better keep it out of the middle of the court. That didn't happen in the first set. In the first set, what we saw a ton of was Tsitsipas's cross-court backhand lands too central. Djokovic runs around, hits an attacking forehand, inside in or inside out. We saw a ton of that. In the second set, Tsitsipas was a little bit better. He went down the line more. He was about 25%. Instead of 80%, he was like low 70% in terms of going cross court, which is better. And he mixed in the slice when he went cross. So more unpredictable on the backhand. And I thought his angles were better on the cross court backhand. So it looked a bit better to me. And that's why one of the reasons the second set was a lot closer. Great forehand drop shots for Tsitsipas. That's in the positive department. He hit some really, really good ones that froze Novak, and I'm intrigued to see if Tsitsipas can make that a more regular weapon that he goes to make his transition game even more potent, because that's when you use the drop shot, generally speaking. You use it in an offensive position when you move inside the court to hit a forehand, and Tsitsipas already hits great approach shots, is already so dangerous moving through the court and to finish at net. You throw in a drop shot, and that gets even more dominant. One of the things I saw on the Djokovic side was the second serve kicking up to the Tsitsipas backhand. And something Jim Courier has highlighted analyzing these matches for Tennis Channel, I think it's a great point. We saw Djokovic for many years after the elbow operation going to the slice second serve and not hitting the kick. And we've started to see the kick a little bit more. And in this matchup, it's really, really helpful because against Tsitsipas, you definitely want to hit the second serve to his backhand, not the forehand. And if you hit to his backhand, you probably don't want to hit a slice serve because that tails to the right towards Tsitsipas's forehand. And it doesn't bounce as high. Tsitsipas's drive backhand is better when it's lower. So you want to hit the kick. Djokovic kicking it to Tsitsipas's backhand, really successful, beautiful second serve execution. And ultimately, he won. Pull up these match stats. Djokovic won a very healthy doesn't do it justice, an immaculate 74% of his second serve points. So they go to a tiebreak in the second set after Tsitsipas plays much better on his backhand. And in that tiebreak, it's vintage Novak. I don't think Tsitsipas played a bad second set tiebreak. Djokovic made 0 mistakes. None. Tsitsipas made 2 mistakes. Not terrible. Not sloppy. 2 mistakes. Kind of what you'd expect. I mean, it was 6-4, so 10 points. You make two unforced errors. It's not awful. So that's a 2-point edge for Djokovic. But he won at 7-4. What's that third point? The third point was an improbable scramble from Novak. And let's go back to Paris. Let's think about what we saw in that Paris tiebreak. We saw 3 bad backhand trades by Tsitsipas and 1 incredible Djokovic scramble where he anticipated correctly and stole a point it looked like Tsitsipas surely should have won. Same thing in this one. This time it was at 1-2. And again, Tsitsipas hit 2 great backhands. He hit, after a backhand unforced error, he hit 2 great ones. He hit 1 cross court. Then he went, he hit the first one down the line. Then he hit the approach cross court, just like he did in Paris. Big backhand cross court into the open court. And Djokovic with his signature and unbelievable open stance, backhand pass, cross court, winner, edge of the sideline, key mini break stolen, robbery, and he wins the tiebreak 7-4. So again, it's like completely buttoned up tiebreak by Djokovic, 1 insane improbable scramble, and that's kind of the formula. And he's actually 3 out of the last 4 matches against Tsitsipas, he's closed out in a tiebreak, going back to Rome last year, and then Paris this year, and now this match. 3 tie breaks in a row for Novak. He plays them so well. And that's it. I think there's a lot of positives for Stefanos to take out of that performance, but it was another real masterpiece by Novak. So that's it. Day 2 in the books. Hope you enjoyed. Don't forget to subscribe. I'll see you next time.